gentlemen, if you're taking the steps, I guess you're getting your exercise this morning. There is that positive. So thank you for accommodating us while we take care of our legal issues. We are prepared to proceed. So with that, Ms. Mills, you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Before the break, Colleen, we were talking about November 13th, 2014, when you called 911. Would you start there? When was the first time you called 911 on November 13th?
I had called it on our way home from the bar when Rob had been slamming me into the side of the car. And I ended up dropping the phone, and when we parked, I was able to get out and grab my phone. You can hear him screaming at me.
Sustained.
He screamed at me to get out of the car, and I did. I ended up going over to my neighbor Judy's house, and I did talk to the dispatcher multiple times, and I wanted them to prevent him from coming back, and they told me they weren't able to. So, and they asked if I wanted to make a report, and I declined to do so. I didn't understand why I would make a report if they weren't going to stop him from coming back. Also, I knew it would prevent him from seeing his son, and I didn't want to cause any more controversy. I went home that night, and I packed a bag for him, and I wrote a note, and I put it out on the front step, and I locked the screen door and the front door. I knew he didn't have his keys because he kept his house keys and his truck keys separate.
What did the note say, Colleen, that you left with his bag?
I had wrote that he wasn't allowed to come into the house and that we were done. And I took care of the animals. I ended up using my phone and called my coworker to say that I didn't know if I'd make it in the next day. And I went to bed. I put my pajamas on and I went to bed.
What's the next thing you remember after you fell asleep?
I was asleep, and someone got on top of me and took a pillow and put it over my face.
Tissues calling you right there.
And it wasn't that I wasn't able to move, and I couldn't breathe, and I passed out. The next thing I know is that I was in the shower, full of cold, and I was moaning, and the cold water was coming down into my face. And he was cradling me and sobbing, and it's not coming out of his nose. And he was saying, I'm sorry, please don't die. And I was trying to recognize what happened. And it was confusing. I was in a fog because I didn't understand how I got from the bed to the shower. And I was telling God, get off me, get off me. And he sat back and was crying and told me to leave. And he left. And I just took a shower. I took my pajamas off and I just took a shower. When I got out, I realized he wasn't there because I couldn't move. But I looked for my phone and I couldn't find where it was. So I just got ready for work and I ended up going in.
And did you actually work that particular morning, Colleen?
I'm sorry. Can you ask the question again?
I can't. Did you actually end up working then that particular morning when you went in?
When I went to work, I didn't clock in. And I still had to take my dog Scarlet to the vet. And I did talk to Rob through Facebook because I didn't have any phone. And I didn't clock in, and so I left.
Colleen, do you have any idea how Rob got into the house that particular morning because you said you had locked it and he didn't have his keys?
He had to have broken in, and I know he broke the screen door, and it still broke to this day. The latch.
After work, did you go back home?
I did.
And was Rob there when you got home?
He was at the house.
Did you have a discussion with him?
When I came into the house, Rob was there, and he had my gun to his head, and he was saying he was going to kill himself. And of course I told him, no, please don't do it. And I talked him down and told him, I loved him and I cared about him. And he ended up putting the gun down, and so I ended up taking it and putting it in my vehicle.
And did you actually then take Scarlett to the vet?
Yes, I had to take her to the vet.
What happened after you finished at the vet?
I came home and I went to work, and I worked a half a day.
And generally when you work, Colleen, how long? What's your regular hours?
In that rotation, I was working, I think, like an 8:30 to 5.
So did you leave work then right at 5 on that particular day?
Yes, I would have.
And what happened on your way home?
When I came home, Rob was parked in the parking lot. There's a restaurant called Bugsby's, and it's right outside where you turn into my allotment, and I saw his truck parked there, so I stopped. And when I got into his truck to see what he was doing, and there was empty beer bottles all over, and he was sobbing and crying, and I got in and I talked to him.
Did he have any clothes with him?
Yes, he had packed his clothes.
And when you got into his truck, what did you talk about?
Well, I talked about, worried about how worried I was for him and that he needed to get help. And promised he would, and that we would work through this, and I agreed. He was still heavily intoxicated. And so I was just like, just come home and go to bed.
When you say that he would get help, what kind of help did you need?
To go to counseling.
And did Rob agree to go to counseling?
Yes.
At any point in time during your marriage, did the both of you go to counseling?
No.
What happened after you both went home, Colleen?
He went to bed.
Why didn't you both seek counseling after that event?
We were supposed to, and, Rob promised that he would find a counselor. I would suggest, various counselors, and he'd say no. His work schedule was very difficult to work around, and he'd always use that as an excuse.
Colleen, what did Rob tell you about you calling the police that particular evening, that November 13th?
I ended up telling him that I called the cops for what happened in the vehicle, and that I talked to them. And, of course, he was like, did you make a report? What did you tell him? And, I said I didn't, and he told me that he better never call the cops again because he's not going to let anyone drag him out of his house.
Did Rob promise to stop drinking?
He would, yes, and he would say that he would quit drinking, and then he would talk about he wouldn't drink liquor.
Can you please tell the jury what happened on November 22nd, 2013?
Yes, on November 22nd, we had made plans for the next day to have a family party, and so we went to Cleveland. Got food at the West Side Market, and we came back, and Rob, wanted to stop and watch the game at a bar and get a drink, and, of course I was hesitant, but it's like, okay, it's fine. We visited with our neighbor, Abby, who bartended there, and then my coworkers called me and were like, hey, we're in Canton, why don't you come play pool with us? And so we agreed, and Rob promised, he's like, I'm not going to take any shots, I'm not going to drink any liquor, it's okay, it's going to be okay. So I was like, okay, I just wanted to, have a good night. And we ended up going home, taking care of the animals, and then meeting them out. And then Rob started taking shots behind my back. He promised that we'd leave at midnight. Then they wanted to go to another bar, so we did. And he kept drinking and drinking. And so I'm like, I'm going to leave. And my coworkers, they were like, well, why don't we go back to your house? Because they knew that I was trying to stop Rob from drinking more because he was becoming belligerent. And he refused. He said, absolutely not, I'm not leaving. And my neighbor Mike was at that bar, and he agreed to drive him home. So I asked him for his debit card and his credit card so he couldn't continue drinking. And I left, and I drove myself home.
Approximately what time did you go home that night, Colleen?
I went home right at midnight.
And then when was the next time you saw Rob?
When I was home, I just got ready, and I was laying on the couch with the dogs. And he came in through the door and was screaming where the F was his mother. He was calling me the C word. And he wanted his credit cards, and he came up and around, and I was laying on the couch. And before I could really even say anything, he was grabbing me and screaming in my face. And my dog, Scarlet, was going crazy, and she ended up biting him because he was being so aggressive. And he let go. And, looked for a second, and I ended up kicking him in his crotch, and he fell, and I tried to run on the couch to the stairs to go out the house. And before I could get down the stairs, he grabbed me by the back of my hoodie and my hair and clothes-hangered me back up the stairs. I was just trying to leave out the front of the house, and he dragged me down the hallway into the bedroom. And when he got there, his debit card and his credit card were right there on the bed. And he saw me, he let go of me, and then he grabbed him and slipped over me.
And then he left the house?
Yes.
Then when was the next time that you saw Rob?
He came home with his friend Aaron, and he was totally incoherent. He had fallen in the front yard and had dog feces all over his pants. And he went into the basement with Aaron, and they slept.
And did you then have any discussions with Rob that morning, Colleen?
Yes, I did. I tried to talk to him about what happened, and he said he didn't remember. And I told him what he did, and he just ignored me, and he ended up leaving and going to his parents' house.
And what about the party that you were supposed to have that day? Did you still have that party?
No, I canceled it.
Were you and Rob communicating via text messages that particular day on what had happened?
We were.
Hopefully that's not too blurry. I want to start with the left-hand side. Colleen, what is your telephone number?
It's the first one, the 330-309-0947. It says wifey.
Okay, and what is Rob's telephone number?
The one that's below it.
Okay, are these text messages done on November 23rd, 2014 between yourself and Rob?
Yes.
And why did you send these messages, Colleen?
He had left to go to his parents, and we were just communicating about what happened.
And what were you trying to make Rob understand?
That he can't physically hurt me, and he can't keep doing it.
Counsel, what is this one?
Oh, I'm sorry. Defendant's Exhibit F.
Thank you.
And obviously, without going into detail with each one, Colleen, Rob is responding to you.
Yes.
Okay? And saying that he hates himself for ever putting hands on you.
Yes.
Did you have subsequent discussions with him relative to how he could not hurt you any longer?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, outside of the text, yes. We had talked about it when his parents brought him back.
I'm sorry, I need to interrupt you. Can you please come forward with that document?
Okay, just for purposes of the record, Defendant's Exhibit S, Colleen, I think we were talking about, obviously, these text messages between yourself and Rob. And my question to you is, did you have subsequent discussions, other than just these text messages, about Rob laying his hands on you?
Yes, I spoke with him about it, and I also spoke with his mom.
When you were communicating via text with Rob, where was he?
He was with his parents.
And you said that the party then, you canceled the party for that day, November 23rd?
Yes, I did.
What did you do that day?
I ended up having to clean up the house, and then I ended up cooking the food that we were supposed to have for the party, and I took it over to his parents and spoke with them about what happened, and Rob went to work.
Just to break down that particular day for the jury, Colleen, what time frame was Rob at his parents' on November 23rd?
When we got up in the morning, he went over there after I had talked to him about what had happened, and he denied it and said he didn't remember any of it.
And then how did he get back home from his parents?
His mother and stepfather ended up driving him back home because he was still intoxicated.
Objection.
And,
Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. An objection to the last part. You will disregard the last portion of the answer as to intoxication state and why.
thank you, Your Honor. What time did Rob then go to work that day?
I don't recall the exact time, but it was like mid-afternoon.
And what did you cook for dinner?
Gosh, we had pork chops. I think that there was potatoes and green beans, I think.
And you said that you took that over to Rob's parents.
Yes.
Was there anyone else there?
His stepdad and his mom were there.
And had dinner.
Yes.
What did you talk about after dinner?
I told him that Rob and I we were having problems, and I did confide in his mom more so than his stepfather. And I told him that I'd have to leave and I'd have to protect myself if it continued.
And honestly, I don't want you to say what they said to you, Colleen,
Right.
but did you have a belief at that point in time that they would help you?
Yes, yes.
And did you ever call upon Rob's mom or stepfather for help after that day?
I did. Rob would get into these moods where he really wanted to drink and wanted to go out, and I would try and say, no, because these circumstances that kept happening were revolved around him drinking. And so I ended up calling his parents to come over one night when Rob got into one of these moods where he wanted to drink, and they came over and they hung out with us.
And what did you do in that particular evening?
We drank and we played beer pong with his parents, and Rob had ordered pizza.
Colleen, were there any physical altercations that occurred first part of December between yourself and Rob?
There was, I was going through the mail and I found overdue mail for a loan, and it was like 4 past due, and so I inquired Rob about it, and he flipped out. It was his student loan he never paid, and then didn't tell me about it and had ignored it, and he ended up telling me to F off and kicked me out of the bed.
Okay, let's talk about New Year's Eve, 2014. What did you want to do for New Year's Eve?
I found a Pinterest post where you like write down your hopes and your dreams for the year, and then you turn it into like next year you can look to see what you accomplished. So I wanted to do something like that. Rob didn't want to do that. I suggested doing like a kid party so we could have a son and other kids that were friends with their parents. Said no, so I ended up compromising, and we did what Rob wanted to do.
And what did Rob want to do?
He wanted to go over to his friend Brittany and Zach's house.
So let's start. Did you work New Year's Eve?
Yes, I worked that day, and he ended up dropping me off because we were going to try and go out to dinner right after work, but that never happened.
So what's the first thing that you did that evening?
We went back to the house, we took care of the animals, Rob showered, and we ended up going to the Kendall bar.
And after the Kendall bar, what did you do?
After the Kendall bar, then we went to Zach and Brittany's.
And time frame, just for the jury, what time approximately was that?
I think we went to the Kendalls around 7, and then maybe got to Zach and Brittany's around 8.
And when you were leaving that evening to head to the Kendall, did you see your neighbor?
Yes, right outside we saw Mike and Abby, and I told them that we'd be bringing in the new year with them later that night.
So now from the Kendall, you end up going to Brittany and Zach's.
Yes.
And do you recall approximately what time you went to that party, Colleen?
Probably around 8 o'clock.
And what did you do there?
Just sat down, hung out. Mitch was there, and Rob was there, obviously, and just kind of hung out, and I played with their puppy.
Did you know many of the people there at the party?
No, I'd only met them once before.
And at some point in time, you left the party.
Yes, Rob wanted to go to Tucker's bar, so 4 of us went there.
Did Rob tell you why he wanted to go to Tucker's?
Well, he just, that's how he was. He'd always want to, bar hop or go from place to place.
And you could walk there?
Yes, it was very, very close.
I can just have a moment now to show. And instead of playing the video, I'm going to send you some pictures from the Tucker's video that we've all seen in this courtroom. Can you see that, Colleen? Oh, I'm sorry. For purposes of the record, we are going to be looking at Defendant's Exhibit T first. Then you B and W. Can you see that, Colleen?
Yes. This is Rob, and this is Rocky.
Okay. And were you aware of any money that was to be given to Rocky that evening?
No, we had agreed on taking out $100 for the night, but he never told me he was going to be giving that to Rocky.
And after this particular photograph, did you have any discussions with Rob later on in that evening about any money he had given to Rocky?
No, I didn't know it happened.
This is somewhat the same photograph. Colleen, do you know where you were in the bar that evening when this exchange took place?
When I first came into the bar, I went to the bathroom, into one stall, so I was waiting for another woman to use it. So I think that's where I was.
This is Defendant's Exhibit W for purposes of the record. Again, close to the same photograph that we've seen.
Yes.
Can you describe Rob's wedding ring?
Sure. His wedding ring was made out of titanium. It was black. It was pretty thick band. So you would be able to see it in Tucker's video. But
Sustained. Ladies and gentlemen, you will disregard that last statement.
Colleen, was Rob wearing his wedding ring on New Year's Eve?
no, he actually had lost it about 3 days prior to that, and we had gone through the house looking for it, and it was never found. He had to take it on and off for safety reasons for work.
How long approximately were you at Tucker's?
Not very long, probably half an hour.
And you heard Mitch testify about these warm apple pie shots.
Yes.
Did you have any of those shots?
Yes, I didn't recall until I saw the video, but I did have 4 of them.
And how did you feel after those shots?
They're not very potent shots, so I would say I was tipsy.
What did you do after you left Tucker's?
We ended up walking right back to Zach and Brittany's house.
Okay, and then once you got back to Zach and Brittany's, what happened?
And we had discussed getting a cab, and we were supposed to call a cab that night. And I wanted to leave. I wanted to go over to Mike and Abby's, our neighbors, like we'd agreed upon. So Rob and I were kind of having a disagreement about that.
Did you discuss how much money was left from the $100 that you had agreed to?
But I'd asked them where it all gone. I was like, I don't understand if you only had these couple of drinks. I didn't understand where the money went.
And then once you were back at Zach and Brittany's, what happened?
When we were back there, I wanted to get a cab. I wanted to leave. And that's when I caught Rob doing drugs in the back of the house. And I confronted him about it and asked him what it was. And I didn't know that he was doing them, and so I was in shock. His friends were laughing. They thought it was funny. And I asked them what it was, and nobody would tell me what it was. So, and Brittany ended up coming out because I was loud and I was upset. And she asked us to be quieter to leave. So I left.
Can you describe for us exactly what you saw when you walked out onto the patio?
Rob had a line of drugs in front of him, and he was bent over with a straw up his nose, about to snort cocaine or the substance in front of him.
Okay. You said you were loud.
Yes.
Do you recall what you were saying?
I was asking what it was. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? Those are the types of questions I was asking.
And what happened once Brittany came out and said, "You're being too loud"?
Well, I stopped, and, I said, I was embarrassed. I said, I'm sorry, this isn't my fault, and I left.
And when you say you left, how did you leave through the house?
I had to walk through the whole house, said goodbye, and walked out the front door.
And what did Rob do?
He followed right behind me.
Did you have any discussion with Rob then outside of the house?
We did. I wanted to leave. I wanted to separate from Rob, and I wanted to go to my girlfriend Kelly's house. And he was like, no, we're not going to that whore's house. And I'm like, okay, fine, come down. I didn't want to make any more of a scene than we already had. And so I was like, okay. He's like, we'll just go to Mike and Abby's. And I agreed, okay, let's just salvage it. I don't want to fight anymore.
When you say you agreed and wanted to salvage the night, were you angry?
Oh, no, I wanted to have a good New Year's overall.
Did you voluntarily get into the car?
Yes, I got into the car.
Okay, you weren't forced to get in?
I mean, he just walked over and he opened the door for me.
What happened once you and Rob got into the vehicle?
He got into the car. I got in, I buckled my seatbelt, and when he got in and he turned on the car, he peeled out. And he was driving incredibly fast on a very narrow street, and I put my hands on the dashboard and said, slow down, slow down. And I'm like, he's driving like a maniac, and there's stop signs, and he's not stopping, and he's not looking, and he's screaming at me, calling me every name, C word, the B word, the W word. He's telling me that his friends hate me, that he hates me, and that I'm embarrassment. And we went from the street that we are on, and when we turned onto Lake, he didn't stop, and he went all the way into the other lane of traffic. And I thought for sure we were going to get in a head-on collision. And there was no red lights, and he was honking his horn, and he swerved around people on rails. And then we got to the house, and I was bawling, and I was crying, and I just put my head down, and I'm like, okay, I'm just trying to calm down, and I started wiping my tears away from the rod, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go over to Mike and Abby's. It's going to be okay. And he got out immediately, and he comes around the other side where I am, and he opens the door, and he reaches in, and what are you doing? And he's telling me, shut up. And he puts his hand over my mouth, and he smushed my head against the headrest, and he unbuckled me, and he rips me out of the car. And I don't have control over my body, and he overpowered me, and he wrapped me up, and he takes his other hand and put it, and he wrenched my neck back. And he put his hand over my nose and my mouth, and I couldn't breathe, and carried me all the way up to the house. We get to the house, and he put me down, and he put me between his body and the house, and he opened the door to let us in, and it wasn't locked, and he just shoved me in and was screaming at me once we got into the house. And we get in there, and I have heels on, and I'm rolling in because he shoves me up the stairs, and I kick him off, and I kick him off, and then I try to create space between him and I, because he's right behind me, and so I ran up the stairs, but there's a dog gate. I move it, and he's screaming at me to go back to the bedroom. And he's right behind me, and he has his hand on my neck. If I try and move, he would correct me. And I wasn't able to do anything. So we get to the bedroom, and I just sit down and have my wristlet, and it has my cell phone in it. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to call the cops. As soon as I get a second, I'm going to call the cops. And he left the room. And I left the room, and I take my phone out, and I start putting in my passcode to try and open my phone, and he comes back immediately. Like, he just stepped out and, like, came back. He sees me with my phone, and he, like, stops and looks at me and sees me with my phone, and then he, like, comes over very fast, very direct, and grabs it, and he grabs me on my shoulders, and he, like, shakes me and screams in my face, like a lion or an animal. And he took my phone and he started screaming, I'll give you a reason to call the cops. And I hear him going into the kitchen, and he's walking around, and I grab my gun. And I'm like, okay, I can get out. I didn't have time for me to get out in time. I didn't want to get trapped in the house with him. And when I came out, he was already heading back to the bedroom. And he's like, where the fuck are you going? And I'm leaving, and I'm trying to walk towards the stairs. And he's like, you're not going The next thing I remember is I was facing the back wall, and I had the gun in the back wall, and I was trying to pull the trigger, and he was laying on the ground. So I immediately thought, oh my God, he's on the ground, and he was no longer the man that, he forced me to protect myself, and I still loved him, and so I threw the gun, I didn't even know where it was, and then I searched for my phone, and I called 911, and I searched for a pulse, and I tried to do CPR, but there was blood coming out through his mouth into mine.
Colin, just take a moment, and then I'm going to ask another question, okay? Just take a moment for yourself. Okay?
Yeah.
Let's talk about when you're in the car. And you said you were wiping your tears, trying to compose yourself. Did you have any intention of going into your house first before going to Mike and Abby's?
No, I didn't think that it would be a good idea to go in the house with them alone.
And when you were in the bedroom with your phone, did you have a passcode on your phone?
Yes, I did.
Were you ever able to tap in that entire passcode before Rob came back?
No, I never opened my phone in time.
Where was the gun located in the bedroom?
It was on the windowsill next to us, to the bed.
Whose side of the bed?
It was on our outside of the bed.
Did you have a telephone, a landline in the bedroom?
No, it was just our cell phones.
Did you have any other phone other than the cell phone that Rob had taken to call on?
No.
When you described Rob having his hand over your mouth outside, were you able to scream for any help?
No, I wasn't even able to breathe.
Once you and Rob were in the hallway, what did Rob say to you?
He asked me where I was going.
Where were you going? Where were you trying to go?
I was just trying to leave safely. I didn't want to be trapped.
After you told him you were leaving, what did he say?
He told me I wasn't going to go anywhere.
Did you tell him to back up?
Yeah, I screamed over and over again.
Did he back up at any point in time?
Mm-hmm.
Did he move forward?
Yes.
Did you end up finding your phone that evening that Rob had taken?
Yes. It was on a table next to the couch.
And once you saw your phone, what did you do?
I immediately called 911.
And we've heard part of that 911 call. How long did you do CPR for?
I don't know.
Where were your animals?
I don't know. I don't know if I would have seen them or not.
After you found your phone, where was the dog gate, if you can remember?
It was up against the wall.
Did you move it?
I did.
where did you move it to?
I moved from the ground onto the wall.
Why?
Because when I circled around the house, I was trying to find my phone, and I was looking for it, and it was in my way when I tried to come back through the kitchen, so I had to move it.
And you called 911.
Yes.
What happened when the officers arrived at your house?
Well, first they didn't come to the door. They said they were there, and I didn't hear them. I kept yelling for them to come in, and they didn't, so I ended up going outside.
Do you feel that you've complied with everything that they requested?
Yes, I did.
What happened after the police officers found the right house and you were outside your house?
I came out of the house, and they had their guns drawn, and I put my hands up and told them that Rob was in there alone and that he needed medical attention.
And then did they put you in a car?
They handcuffed me immediately and then put me in the back of a cruiser.
And that evening, Colleen, did you tell any officers that he had laid hands on you?
In the 911 call, I know that I did, but I didn't want to talk to the cops.
Okay. Eventually they took you to the police department. Okay. What were you feeling at that point in time, Colleen?
I mean, I went from being terrified to them trying to resuscitate the man who was supposed to protect me. So it was a lot of emotions, a lot of crying, and it was awful. It was traumatic.
At the jail, did you know whether or not Rob was alive?
I held on to hope that maybe the medical team would be able to do something. But I was worried about it.
Colleen, that evening when you were standing in the hallway with Rob, did you feel that your life was threatened?
Objection.
Sustained the question.
Thank you. Colleen, what were you thinking when you were standing in the hallway with Rob?
I didn't give me any other choice. I didn't want him to die, but I didn't want him to kill me.
Why didn't you go to your family about what was happening in your marriage, Colleen?
Can you repeat the question?
Why didn't you tell?
Yeah, can you just come
Oh,
closer
sorry.
to the mic? It's hard to hear.
Apologize, Your Honor. Colleen, why didn't you tell anyone in your family about what was going on in your marriage?
It was a new marriage. I was embarrassed. I wanted Rob to get help. I thought that we could. I just thought I was strong enough to endure it.
What about your friends?
It's the same issue. Anytime you tell someone something bad about your spouse, it creates controversy and conflict within your own relationship with them. And I wasn't ready to leave.
Did you believe Rob every time he told you he would get help?
Yeah, he was so apologetic, and I cared about him. And I wanted him to get the help. I wanted to give him the chance to do that.
Nana, may I have a moment, please?
You may. ladies and gentlemen, I told you this was going to be a little bit unusual that we were up and down. We're going to venture into another new area in that we are going to take an early lunch break rather than break up the lunch in between the cross-examination. We'll just do it all at one time after our lunch break. So we will be taking our lunch break now. It is just a little before 11:40. We will take our full lunch break. I'll ask that you report to the jury assembly room, remember, at 12:40. Give you the full hour, and we will resume with perhaps a full afternoon, hopefully. And over the lunch hour, ladies and gentlemen, remember, please leave your juror badges on so that other members of the community or anybody connected to the courthouse who might be inclined to be discussing something will be able to see that you are in fact a juror and can choose to not do so in your presence. But do not discuss the case yourselves or with anyone else. Do not allow anyone to discuss it in your presence. Do not form or express an opinion on the case until it is finally submitted to you. And once again, enjoy your lunch. Don't have any alcohol. Make sure you eat what you want and come back refreshed at 12:40. Thank you. We're in recess.